We navigate so much noise every single day, don't we?
Oh, totally.
Constant pings, notifications, conversations. I mean, it's just the never-ending soundtrack.
Yeah.
So, what does it really tell you about someone if they seem completely, at ease when everything goes quiet?
And maybe what does it tell you about yourself? Because that quiet, it isn't just, the absence of sound, right? Like our sources suggest, it's a presence, something all its own.
That's exactly what kicked off this deep dive for us.
Yeah.
We started with this really intriguing idea from Ahmed Paglinawan.
Right. I saw that post.
Yeah, in a post. And then it kind of expanded in a mind map, suggesting basically, when choosing someone, choose one who can be silent. And then the sources, they just layered on this incredible collection of, philosophical thoughts, psychological insights, really digging into why that might be such a powerful thing.
So our mission today is really to unpack that. These sources, they draw this really profound connection between silence and some, core human qualities.
Like what?
Well, self-understanding, for one, courage, deep listening, even how we truly love.
Okay.
We want to explore what finding comfort in quiet tells us, both about the people around us and, maybe about ourselves too.
So the central thread running through all these sources is this idea that silence isn't empty. It's a presence.
Exactly.
And they don't really pull any punches. They argue this presence is what reveals the, quote, real person underneath. It's a pretty compelling thought, isn't it?
It completely reframes silence. It goes from being like passive, just nothing, to something really potent.
Yeah.
And as that mind map lays out, the sources see this power connecting to, almost every part of life. Our relationships, how we lead, our mental well-being, even spiritual depth. It's actually surprisingly foundational.
All right, let's dive into that first bit then, the idea of silence and the self, because that feels like the starting point for all of this.
Okay.
The sources say a person at ease with silence is at ease with himself, like with who he is and isn't, what he can and cannot do, what he has and hasn't got.
Think about that.
Yeah. Someone comfortable in stillness isn't needing to constantly fill the air or, the space. They're not running from themselves.
And what's fascinating is how psychologists have, explored this for decades. People like Carl Jung, for instance.
Right.
He talked about how true growth comes from accepting all parts of yourself, even the messy bits.
The shadow self.
Exactly. He famously said, we can't change what we don't accept. So being able to just sit in silence, just with your own thoughts and feelings, it suggests you're okay with what's actually there. You don't need the constant hum of activity or noise to distract you from you.
Makes sense.
And Henri Nouwen also touched on this more in the spiritual realm. Finding your inherent worth in solitude, totally separate from what you do or achieve.
Just being.
Yeah, it's about simply valuing your own being.
So, okay, if you're uncomfortable with silence, maybe it's because you're, uncomfortable with what you find when everything else just stops.
Yippee.
And someone who is comfortable has maybe already made some kind of peace with that internal landscape.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. They've faced themselves, in a quiet way and found some level of acceptance.
Okay.
And the sources suggest this comfort with your inner self. It directly impacts how you show up for other people.
Specifically, how you listen. The sources make a direct link here.
Yeah.
A person who can be quiet can listen.
Right.
Listen sincerely and listen with intent and purpose. This isn't just about shutting up while the other person talks, is it?
No, not at all. This is about creating the internal quiet needed to actually receive what's being communicated.
Ah, okay.
Think about those studies on introverts. They're often more comfortable with quiet, right?
Right.
And often cited as being particularly good listeners. It allows for that empathetic listening, truly hearing, not just, waiting for your turn to jump in.
Right. Formulating your reply instead of listening.
Exactly. The philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty even went so far as to call silence a language of silence. He argued that the pauses, the gestures, the space between the words can carry really profound meaning. So someone comfortable in silence is maybe more tuned into that unspoken language, listening with that intent and purpose.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's not just closing your mouth. It's about opening your attention.
Yeah.
Creating the mental and emotional space to absorb everything someone is sharing, including maybe what isn't even said out loud.
Precisely. It requires presence, a kind of stillness you cultivate in quiet.
Okay, so from internal peace and deep listening, the sources then connect silence to something.
Yeah.
Well, maybe unexpected.
Yeah.
Courage.
Right. This part's interesting.
They claim a person who longs for quiet has courage. The night won't unease him. Death doesn't faze him. He owns his fears. That feels like a pretty big leap.
It does sound dramatic, I get that. But it ties into thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and the existentialists.
Okay, how so?
Well, they saw silence as this kind of stark confrontation with existence itself. When you strip away all the noise, the social roles, the busyness, you're just left with the raw fact of being.
Your mortality.
Your mortality, your deepest anxieties, all of it. Facing that in silence, sitting with it instead of running from it. Well, that takes a profound kind of courage.
I see.
David Whyte, the poet, also talks about this, how the intimacy of silence requires vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, he sees it as the space where our wounds or fears, once you acknowledge them, actually make you more available to life. So the idea of owning his fears is exactly that.
So acknowledging them in the quiet.
Acknowledging them in the quiet, making peace with their presence without, being totally controlled by them.
So the courage isn't necessarily being fearless, but having the strength to actually be with your fear in that quiet space where you maybe can't avoid it.
I think that's it. It's learning that you can endure that discomfort. You don't need the constant noise or distraction to escape your own fears all the time.
Which then leads us to maybe the most, poetic and insightful connection the sources make. Silence and love. They state, a person who can be silent can love you the only way love is done. Not by sound or seeing, not by nearness or holding, but to love and be loved solely by being.
That is beautiful, isn't it? And it resonates deeply with ideas you find in, say, Eastern philosophies and certain mystical traditions.
Like what?
Well, think of Simone Weil suggesting silence is the only language that God speaks, pointing to a connection that goes way beyond just verbal expression. Or Buddhist concepts of, unconditional presence, cultivated through mindfulness and silence, where love flows from simply being mindfully present with another person, rather than needing to constantly perform acts or declare feelings.
Right, less doing, more being.
Exactly. And psychologist F. Remy Diedrich talks about how silence strips away the need for, performative love, constantly doing stuff to prove you're worthy.
Okay.
It leaves space for acceptance, just as you are. It's love as a state of being present, comfortable, and accepting, with, no agenda and no need to fill the quiet space between you.
Just simply being there together in quiet comfort.
Yeah.
That really does feel like a powerful, almost non-demanding form of acceptance and connection.
It really speaks to a deep level of security and peace within that person, doesn't it? That allows for that non-performative, just genuine presence with another.
And the sources also touch on another angle, silence as a kind of resistance.
Oh, yeah.
Choosing quiet in this overwhelmingly noisy world we live in.
Absolutely. Thinkers like Hannah Arendt or Marshall McLuhan commented on how silence can be an act of reclaiming yourself.
Right.
Especially in a hyper-connected, constantly demanding environment.
It's almost countercultural now.
Totally.
Yeah.
As Sarah Monk notes, silence can quiet our chaotic consciousness and help us push back against all those culturally driven self-evaluations that bombard us.
The noise from outside.
Yeah, it's about taking back control of your own inner space, in a way.
Wow, okay. So the sources really paint this comprehensive picture here, starting from internal comfort with yourself,
right,
to the capacity for deep, receptive listening, to facing fears head on, to a different, maybe deeper way of understanding love, and even a form of, personal resistance in a noisy world.
It's quite a journey through silence. And what grounds it all is how they show these ideas aren't exactly new.
Right. They bring in others.
Yeah. They draw clear parallels to figures like Jung, Sartre, Weil, Nietzsche, Wittgenstein, Merleau-Ponty.
Quite the list.
It highlights that this view of silence as this fundamental, powerful human quality is actually a recurring theme across centuries of thought in both psychology and philosophy.
And as the mind map mentioned earlier, these qualities aren't just, theoretical concepts floating around.
They have real impact.
They have real-world applications in how we build relationships, how we lead others, maintain our mental health, connect spiritually.
Yeah.
Finding people who possess this comfort with silence and maybe cultivating it more in ourselves, it feels incredibly valuable.
It strongly suggests that being at ease with silence, both in yourself and when you see it in others, is a powerful marker.
A marker of what?
Well, maybe authenticity, of courage, of a capacity for truly deep connection, valuing silence in your interactions, making space for it in your life. It could profoundly shift how you relate to yourself and really everyone around you.
So, okay, let's bring it back to that initial idea from the sources then.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive, it shows us that silence isn't just the absence of sound.
Definitely not.
It's a profound presence, and it's linked to self-acceptance, deep listening, courage, and love, defined simply by, well, being present.
The core argument from these sources, it really resonates, I think. Someone at ease with silence demonstrates ease with themselves. They possess that capacity for deep listening, they hold a certain courage in facing reality, and, crucially, they can love simply by being authentically present.
Right.
Recognizing and valuing this quality, both when, choosing who to be close to and when cultivating it within yourself, it can lead to richer connections, maybe more genuine leadership, and just a deeper sense of well-being overall.
And it's a perspective echoed by thinkers across time.
Exactly, pointing to silence as this critical, though often overlooked, aspect of what makes us profoundly human.
It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? If silence is truly a language, like Merleau-Ponty suggested, and if the most silent hour has the greatest sound, as Nietzsche provocatively put it, well, what unspoken truths might you discover by embracing more silence in your own life?
Yeah.
Or by truly taking the time to listen, not just to the words, but to the silence of the people around you.
And our sources hint that the documented psychological benefits, like increased creativity, self-awareness, even those positive effects on immune function noted in positive psychology.
Right, the practical stuff.
That stuff might just be the tip of the iceberg for what silence truly offers. There could be something much deeper going on.